Beautiful property. So picturesque. Hey, Buster. Hey, Maggie. Go. Oh my goodness. So I just watched a video somebody sent me from Israeli Live guy, DeNoon or something. I've seen several of his videos. And he's a good guy. Very humble, and he understands a lot of things. He's learning a lot of things. We're all learning. He seems to know the situation there with Israel is not so good. I guess he lives in America now. Him and his wife, I'm not sure. Last I understood. There's a little hole there. Anyways, about the hollow earth. We've talked about that a few times, and I've shared some of that information. Well, look at that. There's poo-poo in there. And ants. Some little varmint lives in there. I always wonder when I poke my head in something like that, whether they're in there looking down at me. Ooh, one of those ants bit me. Just hiding in there. Whether they're not, they're never in there. Like they just sleep there at night, maybe. I don't know. Ah, oh, so pretty. So pretty. Okay. Well, we haven't done this. Take a little walk with the leaves now out. They're not fully formed yet, but they're real pretty. They're out. And so anyway, evidently DeNoon, what's his name? Stephen? He believes in the hollow earth now. Well, he's getting closer. Getting closer. You know, I've done other videos. A lot of you new to the channel may not know some of the videos I did in the past. We've discussed all this to, what do they say, ad nauseum or something. Well, we've talked about this. As you know, we don't believe in the flat earth. There's just no evidence for that at all. Not, mankind's always known the earth was round, but the hollow earth is a different story. Now, there's some truth to that. But it's not exactly the hollow earth either. But we're getting closer when we're talking about the hollow earth. The German government believed in it. Their science was based on it. I remember years ago I had heard that they thought that the stars, instead of being physical orbs, they believed that They were like little pinpricks, little holes in the fabric of the universe that the light would shine through. And that's kind of true too. Because remember, inside of the sun is higher elements, hydrogen, helium, oxygen. Those are elements. Lighter. Light is up. Heaven is up. But as we talk about this, keep in mind that in an infinite universe, which we know scientifically the universe has to be infinite, there would be no eternal life without an infinite universe. There can be no up or down in an infinite, left or right. There can't. All of this is symbolic. It's a point of reference for where we're at here in our own consciousness. And everything physical is just a bubble of consciousness. And if you're the source, then you're the center. And everything's around you is manifesting around you. And so the universe appears to be spherical in that sense. But again, that's a model. We're trying to understand, we're trying to explain the universe by using words we understand or concepts. The universe is, we can't comprehend the universe with English or with our present conscious mind. When you get very high or out of body experiences, when you are in the upper room, when you're filled with the Holy Spirit, you can understand more. Wisdom and reality are in that realm that is invisible to us. That is the truth, not the flat earth or the hollow earth, or even a globe. Globe is a model, but it is the only model that would work scientifically to incorporate all the variables that we know and can measure. To us, in this world, the earth is a sphere. Now, not in reality, but it's kind of like saying, to us, this tree is tangible. We have a word. We have a word that we use. Tangible. I can feel it. Okay. Now that's just a sensation. It's a concept. I perceive with concepts. The body has senses that perceive the universe around it in tangible ways. Weight, solid, fluid, directional, east, west, north, and south. But all of that is in the mind. It's concepts. Because in reality, we are beings. We exist apart from any kind of illusion or house. We're the being in the house. We manifest or build our own house. I mean, you can imagine, even in the world we live in, we build houses. We form and create them. Well, it starts with something in the mind. We conceive of it, and then we build it. So it's kind of like a little parable there, because where do we get the tools? Where do we get the substance to build with? Well, in the reality, the substance that we build around ourselves is the image or the imagination. Images, form. The lower ego and the higher ego. This is why there is such a thing as Yahweh, and he rules over the abyss. These things are coming on too. I didn't even think about it. These little shrubs, whatever they are, they're getting leaves. And then the sagebrush is coming on with some leaves too. Brilliant, beautiful colors starting to come on. It's been raining. Look at the little beautiful pinion that's growing up here. And, you know, that's just a pinion, right? Just a tree. But you see how it's, the colors kind of lighter on the tips, and then there's these little flowers basically at the end. There's a little different color. It's just the hues and the depth, the pastels. It's just so beautiful to me. And then you get these little purple flowers coming up. Just like a little oasis of beauty here amongst the dirt and rocks. To me, that's more beautiful than, like I've told the story where my mother used to say how beautiful Idaho was. Up in Canada and Alaska. And it truly was. You could look around. You're standing in the flowers. You don't appreciate beauty because you know why? They don't have color in their eye. They don't see things in color like we do. They have some colors probably. Some bland colors. They don't see things as beautiful. We're a higher species and we sense in a higher form and beauties and colors. But there are higher telepathic abilities that with the imagination we can make worlds beyond worlds that we're going to attain into. The height and the depth and the breadth and the width no man or eyes ever seen. Little oaks. It's starting to sprinkle too. Might rain on us. So reality then can only be perceived in a model that works. If you can find a model to describe, for instance, if I said in English, this is a beautiful bluff here with some beautiful cliffs. You know what I mean, or you think you do. You're trying to perceive what I feel, what I see. I'm trying to relay that, express what my reality is to you. Now, if I came up here and I said in French, oui, now I wouldn't be able to understand, and I wouldn't be able to perceive someone hearing that didn't speak French, wouldn't be able to perceive what I'm trying to explain. So I have a model to explain, and it's called English. And everybody who speaks English grasps partially what I'm saying. Although even then, we're translating what I'm saying. I'm describing it in the best detail that I can. But, you know, it's not the same as actually being there, is it? Not the same. So any model or is a language, a way to explain. I found some water over there. Found a puddle of water to drink. Yummy! Oh, I still can't see over there. Beyond that tree. I wanted to see the mountains beyond the tree. Oh well. So Newton had a model of the universe, Newtonian physics, and it worked very well and still works. Because it's like we learn that language and that language makes some sense and we grasp some things from that. And so we say, okay, Here's what I perceive to be reality. Now I'm going to explain that to try and understand it. I'm going to say this is green. So then we have to develop the fact that this is different than blue and red, and we have a thing we call colors, and we put this all together and we say the reality of the universe is there's green, blue, red, yellow, green, and there is hard, there is soft, there is spiky and pointy, and there is blunt, and there is different textures, and we've got all this, and it makes perfectly sense, and it's true. That's what I'm seeing and what I'm perceiving. However, that is not true. This is not solid at all. It is an image in your mind, and you're trying to perceive and grasp and understand this image, and you have to have time and space, because if it was existing without time, then you'd be thinking so vast you couldn't even pinpoint the time, the moment, because you didn't have time, where it was hard or where it looked like that to you or whatever. You could. This is something. This form is in time. It's also in space. So we have dimensions. But if it's not if there is no actual time and space, then it doesn't really exist. But time and space is a concept that is. You divide time and space up into all kinds of more concepts. So explain space. Well, let's see. We've got solid, fluid, gaseous, and we can break solid down to smooth and hard and brown colors. And so in other words, it's a model. But in reality, this is only a model, and this is only an image in our mind, and we can take it down instantly if we had the faith and we understood. We could be gone from this bubble of consciousness and be taken and transported to another consciousness, and that doesn't even exist anymore. It still exists in everybody's minds that's down here believing in it, right? But it's only what we believe, it's what we perceive. It's like having some 50 people in a room and they're all dreaming, right? Now, if reality is that room, then the reality is that you're in 4 white walls, 4 gurneys. There's 4 people in there. Let's do 50 people. There's 50 gurneys, 50 white sheets, 50 apparatuses that we're lying on. And anyway, we've got a syringe. That's the reality. We're in reality, right? We're in a room. We're all conscious. We see it with our own eyes. We can feel it. We can taste it. We can touch it. We know it's reality, right? Okay, so we syringe each of these people, sedate them all, and an hour later we wake them up and say, what were you dreaming? Or let's say we had a computer that could record all their dreams. Well, each and every one of these 50 people would have a completely different experience. They would have perceived reality 50 different ways. You could maybe suggest subtly to each of them that they were going to go and dream of something specific, a house in a field with some trees or whatever. And they might, all of them, because you suggested it, dream of something. But they would all have their own little particular dream. Indian paintbrush or what? I don't think so. Kind of like it though. Beautiful. They would all have their own idea of reality, and as soon as you woke them up, you'd say, now wait a minute, where were you? Oh, I was over here, and there was this house, and I talked to a lady, and whatever. I was real, man. I touched her. I spoke to her, man. In fact, I could prove it. I can prove it. Well, how do you prove it? Well, she said, blah, 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 blah. Now, see if that's true. Okay, we went and found out it's true. Maybe because your mind has no time and space, and your mind knew that, and the character in your mind knew that. And it is true, or at least your mind told you something that your mind believed to be true, that happens to be one of those beliefs that everybody in the room had believed, right? When you all wake up and we're all in the same consciousness, we can verify everything we said, because everybody in the room now, all 50 of you, plus the doctor putting a syringe, in your arm, all of them, and the nurse, they all have this, we all believe the same thing, that we're all standing in a room with 4 white walls. And so, when we were dreaming, we knew, there was a part of our mind that knew some reality was back from that other world. And we were thinking about something to prove our experience. So our mind knew that we're going to have to come up with something that would prove that we are connected to that other world. In that other world, this is true. And maybe we didn't even know it in our conscious mind when we're in this world, because the conscious mind is just experiencing like a fool. It's this powerful higher. There's different levels, of course. There's the source, which creates everything, the creator, the being, the thinker. But there's other layers. There's layers of emotion or beliefs. Beliefs can change. Jesus talked about uprooting a tree and throwing it in the sea. Well, trees have deep roots. It's difficult to uproot a tree, but it can be done. Man, those are like your beliefs. They're very difficult to get rid of if you have beliefs. You shouldn't have any beliefs. You should only accept reality. Just walk through life accepting reality. And if I say, okay, I accept that this is here, is that reality? No. You have to understand, when you wake up, when you find reality, you realize that this is your own perception. It's the reality you're walking in, that you've created. But there's another reality. There has to be. If all of us are one, we're all intertangled, we're all children of the Lord, then somewhere in a higher level, we all have the same reality. And we can access that area where all of our feelings and what we see and what we believe there is a reality. It's not just belief, it's just knowing. That's the blueprint for everything else. This is just my own version of reality, right? But somewhere in the universe, there has to be a real reality. That's the world that the Lord made. So in Genesis chapter 1, it says that Elohim, and that's all of the deities, all the variables that be, all the realities, all the beings. Everything's a being. I mean, even it has some sort of inner reality that manifests it. So everything has a spirit. Okay? The blueprint of that. In the eternal world, there's trees just exactly like all of this. And we've been there, we're conscious of that. And we come here and we imagine it, and we expand it, and we can play with it and have certain occurrences or happenstances that we imagine happen in this world. We encounter the tree, we encounter the colors and the sky, and we, but for me to be able to perceive a tree, I could not have made it up out of nothing. Nothing can produce something. The universe didn't come from nothing. The universe came from the divinity, the deity, the mind, the spirit. And that's the realm where all of us live. And there's no time and space there. Everything exists in its primal spiritual condition. There's no time and space. It's just all there, all at once. There's no experience there. We came here to get experience, to have adventure, to take the thoughts that we couldn't invent. We didn't invent trees. Okay, but we remember seeing a tree, and so now we're remembering trees and putting them in our little consciousness bubble, and we're making a world, our own little world, duplicated or copied from the reality. And in this world of mine, I may come across other, because I'm the divine one creating, I'm the thinker, I may come across other realities that come together and experience each other. So The divine mind is one, and he split it into many different pieces, variables, entities. Another me, because there's only one me, there's only one I am, the divine one. And we split the divine one into two. Now we got mommy and daddy. They're distinct because one's half the other half. You know, one's up and one's down. One's left, one's right. Just concepts, because mommy and daddy are one. And mommy and daddy make, through sex, through the orgasm of experience and love and coming together as one, they make another child, the firstborn. They make a reality. And that child sees the universe as, you know, dual. He's not the all the way back to the oneness without time and space. But he's able to see his mom and his dad. He sees both sides of his story here, the physical and the spiritual and color, you know. But then from there, he has children, and the universe gets broken up into all these variables and all these, the universe is, you know, the infinite number of variables and quantities. And this is quantum physics. They're just little images, thoughts from the divine blueprint. So what I'm saying all this for is because that's reality. The earth isn't really a globe. Okay, but in our consciousness, in this world, it is. It's a globe. It can only be explained as a globe in our present consciousness. It can only be explained perfectly as a globe. Now, I'm explaining it now as it's not a globe, so maybe I'm not telling the truth there. But I can, through evidence, prove something that I can't know consciously. For instance, like, I don't know what's beyond this bluff. But I know from all of the evidence that every bluff, I go around over the bluff and then there's more trees. And there's another vista and there's more mountains. And it just keeps going forever, infinite. What makes you think that if you kept going in this direction, you'd go all the way around the earth and come back to the same spot? I mean, you probably couldn't do that anyway because it's so far. You couldn't walk that far in your lifetime, maybe. Maybe you could, but it'd be a long time. Everything would be changed by the time you got there, right? The trees would be grown and dead or something. Everything would be changed. But so practically, it's impossible anyway. But if I could go, and how could I be certain that I'd come around the same spot? Well, with our measurements and the way we understand this this concept that we're living in, the only math that works is that I would come to the same spot. But if I were to change my mind at any point along the way, if I were to advance spiritually, if I were to be in a dream and I was walking along and I saw people playing and animals drinking from a brook and a sun coming up, and it was all a beautiful world and I was experiencing, and all of a sudden a monster jumped out of the bushes. Well, that's not part of the story, but my mind became afraid in the story, and out of nowhere, out of my imagination, out of the abyss, comes the monster. My imagination is the abyss, the darkness, the unknown. It's dark. It's not the reality of the universe. So the dragon's down there in a place that doesn't exist, just the imagination. It doesn't exist. All that really exists is what you create through fear or through love. If you do it through love, that means through peace. That means allowing it to be what it is. So we all go back to that eternal world where everything's at peace. But if we create, so we're duplicating reality. We're seeing reality. But if we are overwhelmed with fear, that's the lower ego. That's the pride. That's the fear. And we can actually take some of the things that we've seen and twist them and turn them into something monstrous. Little illusions. And we can live in an illusion. We can live in a nightmare. But we wake up and it's gone. That world is temporary. Because I am not the the beginning. I'm not the source. I'm not the one. I'm just one consciousness swimming around, one variable, one entity in one particular space at some particular time. Now, I run across other individuals from time to time. And I go, who's that? Well, it's me. There's only one me. There's only one I. There's only one thinker, one spirit, one reality. If that person's a real person, then they're me. I'm me. I'm a real person. Okay? But I'm me over here in this space, in this quantum, in this variable. In space and time, you divide it all up into left and right, colors, hard, smooth, soft, there's all these variables. But they're all part of the one. So I'm existing as, maybe as a tree. The divine spirit's in that tree. It's manifesting in space over there in a certain, remember you can divide space up into rough and smooth and tall and short. So it's some particular concept in space and in time. And everything that exists is another, is the same reality, but in another space or time. So we're all one. We're getting to know, it's the divine being getting to know all his variables, getting to know his bride, his wife, and his kids, becoming one, having happiness, getting rid of the fear, the illusion, and staying in the reality. So there is no hollow earth. There's no globe in reality. But in our reality that we've created for ourselves, there is a globe. Now, we can also imagine the earth as a flat plane. Okay, for a moment. In this moment. But all we can do is imagine a plane that goes into the horizon, and then we can't see it no more. Because we can't think about that far in the future. Because we're in the moment. Even though we're not living in the moment, like they say, if we live in the moment, we'd be happy. But even though we're not living in the absolute moment, and we'd be better off if we did, we're still living in some kind of a moment, which is the conscious reality that we're living in. And we're not paying attention to all the other variables. That tree's a tree, doesn't know that there's other trees, or it's trying to experience other trees with chemical reactions, and when the air touches it, it turns orange. So it's reacting to other things around it, but it's not conscious of any of these other trees. Like I am me, and I'm not conscious of being you. So I can't. So even though that theoretically, in reasonable models, one could draw a universe that was an eternal flat plane, it wouldn't be so in my consciousness, because I can't perceive anything beyond the mountain, And so that reality over there is someone else's reality. Somebody else's reality. And not mine. And so I've got to leave my consciousness to go into their consciousness, which is difficult. You can't do that. You can, with sympathy or with empathy, you can try to perceive what something else feels. You could communicate in some way to share your experience with someone else, which is just a symbol of reality, that we're all one in the first place. But as long as I am in this consciousness, right, then I'm in my consciousness and I'm not in yours. And you're going to have to explain it to me. And I can, like I said, that tree can experience a reaction. It can react to other trees, to other chemicals. And I can meet someone that can talk to me about their life, and I can empathize and sympathize and I don't think I got that. And to some extent I can try to understand them, perceive them. That's why we're here. We're living each and every of these. We're the divine being living in all these different realities, trying to understand each and every reality, trying to live as though we're in that reality and experience it. We're dreaming. We're imagining everything in the universe. But so let's think about this. In Genesis chapter 1, it says that there was, a lot of people think the garden is the Garden of Eden. And it doesn't say that in the Bible. It says the garden was one thing. And it doesn't even mean a garden, actually. It means an enclosure. An enclosure is something that surrounds something else. The outer surrounding of it, the wall. But it says that Yahweh is the one who made a garden. Yahweh didn't make Eden. Eden is paradise. Paradise is in heaven. Paul went to paradise, the third heaven. So Eden was made in chapter 1 of Genesis, where you notice that Elohim, all of us, were there in the one being of the divineness. You know, the one family. And we made the reality, the Eden, the paradise. And everything was there, every variable. There were trees, there were animals, there was water and mountains and everything. We made the world. And it was perfect. Nothing ever died. That's the reality. That's the concepts that we imagined, imaged from ourselves, from our innermost being. Those are the realities, the laws of the physical universe that sustain and uphold everything by the word of its power. And then the lower ego comes along. He's like, we don't want to stay here in reality. Peace is wonderful, but we want some adventure. We want to understand all these little realities and fully grasp the universe. We want to have some experience. You know? The lower ego is it's kind of like the creative imagination that starts creating all these forms. So Yahweh, the lower I am, who says I am the divine one, because he couldn't comprehend everything yet. We're all standing there in the universe looking at the whole thing. There's no time and space. It's immortal. But we needed time and space. We needed sin. We needed experience. We needed a temporary world to see and experience everything, to grasp it. So the lower ego begins to create, but he doesn't create, he forms. Because remember, creation is done by the higher Father, and in the Divine Mother, it's the mental images of the reality, the higher consciousness that manifests reality. The lower ego is not manifesting reality, it's manifesting illusions. So as above, so below. Above is love and down below is fear. They both create, in a sense. But love manifests itself, the reality. But the lower form that creates is out of fear. And it's making illusions. Because why? Well, it could make reality. Because fear makes stuff. But we don't want to live there. Because fear, after all, is based on illusion. Fear is, say, what if I would die? Well, you can't die. It's like saying, what if the earth wasn't firm and I fell through and went into the abyss of, like, what kind of monsters can I create that aren't reality? they're a lack of faith. It's uncertainty, unknowing. So unknowing is something that, if we lived forever in unknowing, we would always have monsters. But since we're going to achieve and attain unto knowledge, then when we do, we'll be in reality, and the illusion will be gone. So that's why the fear doesn't create reality. It appears to be reality while we're there. So we're making things from our fears, from the lower ego. And we think we're the divine one. We think we're the only one. I am the Lord and there is none else, right? I am the Savior. I'll save myself, I can do this. I'm the conscious mind. I know everything, but the conscious mind doesn't know everything. It's a lie. We're liars. But we have to lie. We have to, in order to pretend, like children pretend, right? They pretend they're doctors and nurses and construction workers and plumbers and sawmill workers or whatever. They're not really, but they're just preparing for when they grow up and they're going to be something. So as children, we're in this little imaginary world. We're creating this world. But this is the outer world. See, because remember, the universe is infinite. There's no up and down. There's no in and out. But we use a model to describe it in English. And so in means the source, where everything is manifested from. So we have words like from, in, toward, out. Up, down, whatever. And these are concepts. There's no reality to them. We're just making up concepts. To understand it, put everything in a particular place. To say, well, I don't understand everything. I've got all these marbles. Let me see. I'll put the blue ones over here, put the red ones over here. And then when we get all the colors separated, then we'll take a look at each color so we can see the differences. Right? So that's time and space, because it's going to take time to do that. And so that's the lower carnal mind. That's Yahweh who makes form. Now notice it says that Yahweh created a garden. He didn't say created Eden. Or enclosure is the word. A hedge. We think of it as in the terms of a garden. We make a hedge. And in the garden, beyond the hedge, you make flowers and all these plants and everything like this. So it's a garden. There's an orchard. Yahweh makes an orchard. But he makes it, now in our Bibles it says eastward in Eden. Well, it's not in Eden, it's toward, the Greek. Specifically, the Hebrew word is toward. Toward doesn't mean in, it's facing Eden. But it's also not all the way there. It's towards it, but it's not there. Okay, Eden's the source. Okay, the source manifests outward, and the outer is an enclosure around. Maybe a better translation would be, he made a garden around, an enclosure around Eden. Eden's the source. And it says, there were 4 rivers that went out, exited out of Eden, and they watered the garden. Well, now, if the garden and Eden's the same place, then that wouldn't make sense. The water, the 4 rivers, came out of Eden. They exited. The garden is outside of Eden. Facing Eden, but outside of it. Who made Eden? That's the reality. That's the throne of the divine being. The living waters. And remember, in the Sumerian, the good tree, the tree of life, was Jesus. The Muzi. The good shepherd, named Sita. Jesus, I am the bread of life. I will give you living waters bubbling up from your innermost being. The waters come from the inner and flow to the outer, the enclosure. The earth is the garden, the forms, and all the animals in their forms that Yahweh made, that the imagination forms, the temporary, the outer, the illusion. But in the inner, the reality made in Genesis chapter 1, Eden, paradise, the third heaven, which is inner, whether in the body or out of the body. In other words, he was not in the body. He was inside. The kingdom of the divine one is within you. Eden is within you. There is no Eden at the center of the galaxy in reality. We can use a model of the universe to try to explain it that way, and we will here in a minute. We can talk about Eden in the center of the earth, the hollow earth. Okay, but that's not the reality of Eden, the true Eden. Because even if you had a kingdom in the center of the earth, it'd still be carnal, wouldn't it? It would be earthly. It'd be some physical forms. There'd be mountains and trees like we have here. It'd all just be inside. Now there might be a paradise in there, right? It's the inside. A lot of parallels. And there could be waters that are in Eden that flow out to the garden around the outside of the globe. We'll talk about that. But remember, Jesus went to heaven. You say, well, maybe Jesus went to the center of the earth. He's living there. Went to Eden. Well, there might be an Eden in there. But the true reality can't be physical, as we've already said. Jesus he raised up his physical body. But now it's immortal. So wherever he took his immortal body has got to be paradise. It's got to be within the third heaven, paradise. Eden, Genesis chapter 1, where nothing died. At the right hand of his Father and his divine mother. That's got to be within you. Not just within the earth, within you. It's got to be the source of mind and consciousness. The reality, ultimately. Even if there are parallels and types and shadows in the world. For instance, we've said hell is not beneath the earth. There's no demons running around under the ground with, and the volcanic lava flowing. But it's a beautiful type that in the earth there's lava and burning and pits. Pits are beneath the earth and sky is above. Well, our Heavenly Father is Uranus, above in the sky. And Jesus coming on the clouds. But how is he flying around up there? He's not. Remember, there's no up and down, no left and right. This is just concepts. So high in our Bible is inner, within. The source. And so north is also towards the throne, because the North Pole is where everything spins around that, and it's like his throne's there, and we've talked about that. South was considered hot because they lived in the northern hemisphere, and south was the Sahara Desert, and it was like, it got hotter and hotter the farther you went. They didn't realize that you could keep going and go to another paradise down in South Africa, right? But they considered the south. If you stood on a mountain and looked south, all you knew is that you could see an ocean, and at the horizon it went off down over the edge, and it went into the darkness, the night, and the stars, the wandering stars to whom belonged the blackness of the darkness for the ages. Wandering stars. All the stars were just, wandering, the ones in the darkness. Now, the family of light was much greater than the stars. The sun was up above in the sky. It was brilliant. It made the world beautiful. So you could see. That was our Heavenly Father. It was Jesus. And the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his wings. The S-U-N. Horus that rises. We're in the daytime. Children of the day, not of the night. These are symbolic. We're not going to live in the sky. We're living on the top of the earth in summer. in a condition, in a concept. And on the other side of the earth is dark. Well, you know, sometimes the devil would take over for a while, winter would come, and then Jesus would take over for a while, and summer would come. The cycles of rebirth. This was just symbolic of the fact that we were all children once. Darkness, children of the night, struggling, wrestling with Yahweh, Jacob, until we saw Rachel or Rael coming over the horizon at dawn, when Jesus and Mary Magdalene met at the dawn's early light, was the resurrection. It's a symbolic thing. The inner world of Eden is a spiritual world where it's immortal. It's a blueprint for all of this. But we have to have a physical world. We have to manifest the reality through love. And we're going to transform this world, our fears and illusions, into love and peace. And this world will be transformed into the manifestation of Eden. Right now, the lower ego is forming the animals from the dust and making Adam from the dust. And dust you are, and dust you'll return. Because that part of the man, the dust, is going to go back to dust. The spirit, though, is eternal. Who knoweth the spirit of man that goeth upward? Or the spirit of a beast that goeth downward to the earth? Who knows? From this standpoint, from folly, from this human standpoint. But the reality is that there is a divine plan that even Solomon didn't understand in his human form, in his human concepts. And he explained that to you in Psalms and Ecclesiastes. So, Stephen DeNoon, he's brilliant, and I understand he's trying his best. We're all trying our best to understand this, but I'm telling you that if we get carried away and start thinking that Eden is in the center of the earth, no fighting, guys. We might start thinking Jesus is in the center of the earth or something. Well, then you have to wonder, okay, wait a minute. If Eden's in the center of the earth, paradise, then where's hell? It's supposed to be in the center of the earth too. And remember, Yahweh took over the abyss from his father Absu. And he dwells in the abyss. And he comes up out of the bottomless pit, or the abyss, as a monster. Well, beneath the earth is the hole, the pit, the abyss. Right? You go to the earth, and you go to the water, and beneath the water is the abyss, and you go deep into the deepest pit. Wouldn't you eventually get to Eden? I mean, this doesn't make sense. Because it wasn't meant to be understood in that sense. These are symbols. Up has no reference except for, in our consciousness, the sky. So that represents the higher. But in the esoteric, it's within you that is the higher, and the outer that is the lower. So, when Yahweh took Eden, well, he didn't ever take Eden. He made this outer garden. This is the forms, the outer forms. And our Heavenly Father, Jesus, banished these giants, these stars, to the abyss, to the bottomless pit. That's the outer. And that outer is the outer darkness. And that's the bottom of the wheel. You see the dark night, and all the stars are up there. You don't see stars in the daytime. See, the angels that are imprisoned in the abyss are at night. The wandering stars to whom is reserved the blackness of the darkness. That's the bottom of the wheel. Because they considered nighttime the bottom, winter the bottom. An old man winter, Santa, Satan. See, he has a bag of tricks, and it comes down the chimney. We could go into all the symbology, but the point is that this is a symbolic, esoteric thing. It's not, the Eden's not in the center of the earth. And hell's not in the center of the earth. Hell is beneath. Okay? And it's not beneath the ground. It's beneath in grade. It's lower, lesser. Heaven is above, even though it's actually in the center in reality. Well, even then it's not, because there is no materiality. We conceive of the outer form as real, but it doesn't even exist. There is only one reality. But in this esoteric understanding, heaven is above and Jesus lives above. Eden is the reality, and that's where we were all made, in heaven. The third heaven, the highest heaven. Paradise is in heaven. Above. Hell is beneath. Yeah, there's some, types and illusions, there's some symbolic reality there when we look at the earth and we see a solid earth, and we dig down and we see volcanoes spewing up lava and fire, and we think, okay, beneath the earth is hell. Well, and Christ lives on a cloud, right? In Shambhala in the north. Well, if you travel to the North Pole, remember, if the universe is just consciousness, then when you travel, you're traveling in consciousness. And so there has to be a point in which your consciousness shifts. And when you shift your consciousness, you go into another dimension. Each dimension is understood to be a sphere. And when you're on that dimension, or in that consciousness, you see everything around you and you explain it as a sphere. You're never able to go beyond and look outside of yourself and down and prove it, but all the measurements fit. You're in some sort of hologram, and you conceive of yourself as being in a sphere. So in that consciousness, that's the only way you can understand it. But if you were to go to the North Pole, where the positive pole that holds, remember, everything's dual, that makes up reality. So we've got, good and evil, and light and darkness, and male and female. So you've got the positive and the negative. And now the positive, when you go that direction, you get to the tip of the earth, is just like a little wormhole. There has to be a way for our consciousness to get to the next higher consciousness. You can't just get in a spaceship, a tin can filled with rocket fuel, and fly off and go there. That's not how it works. You don't enter into the earth by spaceships. You come out of your mother's womb. You come into the world through the bottom. You leave through the top. People, when they die, they can feel their body leaving. Their subtle, more spiritual, ethereal body, or astral body as well, will go with them. And they go through the top of the head and they leave. And there's a silver cord. Talks about this in Ecclesiastes chapter 12. There's a silver cord that when it's broken, you don't come back to the body no more. As long as that cord is still attached, you can leave you can astral project and come back. Well, where do you go? Well, you leave through the top, through the positive chakra. The igniting of the highest chakra is awareness, or in other words, consciousness beyond. You leave in another dimension. And of course, as above, so below, so that the planets, they always had 7 planets, include the sun and the moon. The highest of which was the sun. That was the top of the head, 7th chakra. That's the mind. And plutonium is the heaviest. Uranium, right? So that's the lowest, the outer has more electrons, it's the weightier, the material, the form. We start at the heaviest form, and we evolve through the consciousnesses up through the planets to the sun. But the sun itself has a positive pole. And through the sun's wormhole on the North Pole, you can go onto the next star, which is probably Alpha Centaurus or something, and Sirius. And you can go all the way to the center of the galaxy, and you can go all the way to the outer extremity, where Jesus is going to raise up his body on Polaris, which is called in Chinese the Emperor's Seat, and in the ancient Egyptian it was Phoenix, or Enoch, or Jesus' throne. And anyway, we can't get into that all, so much I could talk about. We've talked about all this many times. Kolob to the Mormons, and all the planets revolve around it. Polaris, we all revolve around it. That's outer towards the north. Shambhala. So you go through the North Pole, and you go through a wormhole. is basically an eternal flat plane in reality, but even that's not true because it's our consciousness changing from one dimension to another, from one plane to another plane. There are various planes or planets. So each planet is like a plane, but it isn't actual flat. When you go into that plane, it appears for all practical purposes, because of relativity and the bending of light, or your consciousness, it appears to be an orb. Okay? Now inside of the planets there could be realms. There certainly could be worlds inside of worlds. We're not saying that there isn't a hollow earth, that maybe certain individuals originally lived in, a place of peace, and like an Eden. Maybe that's where the waters flowed out from the North Pole and watered the garden, which is on the outside. That's all something we'll talk about in another video. I'm only telling you that's not the real Eden. The true Eden is spiritual. It's within you. The higher, subtler. It's above the astral. It's in the ethereal. It's in the light, the bodies of light that Jesus raised up from the grave. So, when we die, we leave the top of our head, and we leave the top of the earth in the magnetic field of the positive, and we go to the next planet and enter in through the top of the head and come out through the womb. So the portals or the wormholes are the North and South Pole. Now some say there might be other portals around the world, like 12 gates. There are 12 gates, and those are the 12 months. I don't know that there's literal holes anywhere else in the world except the two North and South Poles. Shambhala was to be the place where the Bible calls it Zion, in the opposite ends, the outer extremity in the north. Shambhala was in the Himalayas in the north. Asgard or Thule or wherever. This is the northern kingdom. It's after you die. It's not on the earth, friends. But the earth will be transformed into that immortal world very soon. Here we are. Back to home sweet home. Hi, Maggie. Home sweet home's coming. And this is as close to Shambhala as you're going to get right here. I guarantee it. This is our little place on earth. Now I want to talk more about, we're still going to go through Psalms. And as we go, we're going to talk about some things about the woman and the going into the wilderness and where we're going to be protected and how we're going to survive and find Mount Zion. I'm going to go ahead and go, guys. Hope you have a wonderful day.